So I just watched the DuckTales remake. It's time to prepare to get hit by a nostalgia wave. Also, unlike Jules Gill at What Culture, I am a duck, and I do like wet bread. Oh hi, welcome to So I Just Watched, the show that wanted to get its host replaced by David Tennant, because that is how you get people interested in a piece of media these days. Am I right? Anyway, let's look at DuckTales 2017, a 21st century version of a cartoon made in the 80s and 90s, which, if you know your trends, usually means bad things. Before I forget, I have a challenge for you. Every time I say DuckTales in this video from this moment on, you must woo and take 2 sips of your beverage of choice, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic, in a can, bottle, glass, jug or jar or whatever the hell receptacle you have. And if I hit 10, you have to down a whole fresh one. And don't think you can get away from it because I'm going to put a counter in the bottom left corner. So there's no use running, you're going to be exposed to this either way. I'm actually really excited to see how many of you I can get plastered by the end of this thing. And with that set up, let's get on with things, shall we? Remake culture and the nostalgia baiting that stems from it is something in media that annoys me greatly. That's because, as a wrestling fan, I have been burnt by this way too many times to count. On the subject of animation, it's mostly because quality control is not within the studio's vernacular. Their main goal is to shit out a bright, loud, vibrant cartoon with a recognisable IP and print a metric fuckton of money from it. And given Teen Titans Go, Powerpuff Girls 2016 and Xiaolin Chronicles' poor receptions alongside the same cold shoulder that the Chibi Thundercats one got, it's easy to look at a remake of DuckTales and roll your eyes at it, especially given how Disney's recent track record in this field is not great. I mean, they may be printing dollar bills, y'all, but seriously, fans are not happy, and they just turn a blind eye to it. Then again, Netflix's She-Ra adaptation turned out okay, so maybe there is hope after all. If Disney can't get their live-action ducks in a row, then maybe they have a saving grace with their animation, which actually has bloody ducks in it, and their tails. DuckTales. Woo! So let's dive into the money pit and hope we don't break our necks upon landing. The original DuckTales was infrequent in my childhood, and I thought it was fine, but not the most spectacular thing I ever did see. I may not have the attachment needed for nostalgia to ferment and manifest like some, but I understand the weight that this show carries. It was extremely popular, and it defined Disney's animated output for years. So I can understand totally why some were nervous about this. Thankfully, compared to the occasionally dense and slow original, this revival series looks snappier with just enough bold colours to look appealing, and in a great twist, comes with wittier dialect to fill modern coffers for days, alongside voice acting chops that do not get irritating under any pretenses. Well, except for Donald, who still sounds like a dog's chew toy being squeezed by a Yeti freaking out on speed. I seriously can't understand a word he's saying. Getting David Tennant, the most famous Scottish actor who actually wants to work, sorry Sean Connery, to voice the most famous Scottish animated character, to my recollection, was a fantastic choice, and having Huey, Dewey and Louie speak comprehensively helps a ton, as their rambunctious antics aren't grating despite their loud and feather-braid actions that progress the episode's plots along. Webby's role in the original has been flipped right on its head. No longer the emotional, adorable, and traditionally feminine of the bunch, she's as hyperactive as her diminutive counterparts. She has a major role to play in all of the episodes that I saw for this, focusing on showing her to be adept and able to take part in the adventures herself, rather than just be a bit part player on the side who occasionally puts in a little bit of impetus. Her long-term task to become one of the gang in the 1987 DuckTales original was achieved here in double quick time, which speaks volumes out of the gate if that remedying of the past is one of its starting hands. Also, the upbeat poppy title theme is so bloody catchy it makes the jazzier version from the original feel incredibly outdated, outside of its ending crescendo obviously. Some clinging to the original, however, may disagree with me, but your cries of horror don't mean squat here, because it does the same thing. You think of DuckTales when you hear it, and you vocalise accordingly. I am not complaining, so you should do the same and shut the hell up. Anyway, back onto the review. As noted earlier, this show looks great, with thin outlines and punchy colours combining well with its flat comic book styling and aesthetics, complemented by smooth 3D elements and use of great lighting and shading to really make scenes pop. Sure, it may follow the conventions of its nostalgia-baiting peers in terms of character design and colour palettes, but thankfully it's toned down enough to allow it to be more restrained and more detailed when appropriate. And on the story front, one must ask what you would expect from a show with a reputation that DuckTales has. Action and family values aplenty? Watching the Duck crew risk their feathery butts on an adventure for treasure? Well, if that was the case, it would be stupid of you to be watching on Disney Plus and have it kick things off with an episode that doesn't actually feature any adventuring in it. Sure, I love that Day Trip of Doom addresses Webby's closeted, overprotected, and enthusiastic nature by displaying how out of touch of conventional social norms she is, and that it fits every character alongside her into a nice little place to showcase them off well, making it a perfectly fine starting point regardless, but I really would have hoped that it would have sold the fantastically animated title to its viewer, but it doesn't do that. But yes, technically, Woo was premiered as a pilot movie before the series itself aired, but on Disney Plus it isn't the first thing you see. It's slotted in order of its television viewing instead, and boy does it cause some confusion. I thought Disney had done what they did to Kim Possible and pulled a Firefly. It looks like it was just an error on their end in regards to putting things together on the platform, which isn't a big issue, because either way this magnificent pilot gives you all you would want from DuckTales, Scrooge and his nephews on an adventure, and boy does it entertain with laugh-out-loud moments and set pieces aplenty, all while not missing a beat. It sets everything that follows into motion whilst not treading on too many self-indulgent and flagrant traps. Its follow-up, as I've already mentioned, brings you back down to earth, but still tries to keep its finite balance in tow, and despite more awkwardness than I would anticipate, it pulls it off well, introducing new villains, linking them back to the history that the older series had established for itself, noting that this is a continuation from that rather than something brand new, which is something that a lot of remake and nostalgia-baiting cartoons nowadays really should look into and utilise for its effectiveness. It also has Donald Duck and Mrs. Beakley dueling with humorous antics that shows the legendary squabbling sailor is not going to be an absentee here and has a lot of comedic relief to give, as it broke the awkward tension that was created by the rest of the characters rather nicely indeed. The third and fourth escapades similarly did not overexert themselves. The Great Dime Chase expands more on Scrooge's military endeavours while setting up the overarching narrative breadcrumbs that were left in the final moments of the 44-minute pilot, creating gradual anticipation of what's to come whilst brewing up a fresh cup of destructive yet creative insanity from something that looked boring from the outset, with some great morals to learn along the way. The Beagle Birthday Massacre superbly has continuity from Day Trip of Doom sewn into its story whilst also setting up something for the future, a trait that I am seeing this cartoon does with excellent precision and execution. Again, focusing on Webby and her endeavours with a new friend, its use of slapstick and visual humour was expertly placed. Enough tense moments were complementing them to ensure that it wasn't too lopsided. I could have done without the cringy British accents though. As a Brit myself, that was uncalled for. Come on, DuckTales, I thought you knew better. What I do appreciate though is that they limit the main cast appearances, allowing our main quadruple to be the focus, reminding many that they are the cogs that run this machine, whilst their elders are the coal that fuel it. But it's good to know that they can be self-sufficient on their own as well. By the looks of it, this series has taken great care to lay stellar foundations for itself by not dropping layers upon layers of exposition, lore and backstory on the viewer all at once. It makes you want to watch through and see what keeps getting added, something that a lot of episodic cartoons in the modern day really do struggle with. So seeing it happen here just makes my smile grow ever bigger. We have a grand troublemaking adventure on our hands with this, and it looks like it's going to be a stellar ride from here. So after all that, would I recommend the DuckTales 2017 remake? You know what? I would. It's great. Random Disney Plus related episode ordering issues aside, I can safely say that I enjoyed watching every second of this show from the limited pool I offered myself. It's sharp as a tack in terms of its humour and dialogue, it looks fantastic, and it makes you root for all the characters with ease while keeping you on your toes. In terms of its storytelling, it tries to keep things simple and uncomplicated, but ingeniously always has something simmering below that means every episode has something to give and anticipate. It's fully self-aware of its past, even though it keeps a firm sight on its own future, and treats the audience watching, whether they are old or new, with respect. It's not overbearing, and looks to have been well thought out even from such an early stage in its run, which shows in its buttery smooth execution, with rarely a fault to be noted, which is a very good thing for me. It gives you all you need to deep dive into that vault of Scrooges and immediately hit the jackpot, which is a massive relief. I was fearful that this would follow the error-strewn paths created by the shows that preceded and have inevitably followed it, but thankfully Disney did us a solid with this iteration of DuckTales by giving this legendary series a new lease of life, and with it a new audience to please, including me. Even from just the 4 episodes I sampled, I can definitely see how this has lasted 4 bloody seasons thus far. And all the power to them, it looks like it's going to continue for some time to come. I'm Freddie Thomas, you've been people watching, this is the CC Network, and I will see you all next time.